Hello everyone, my name is Emily and today I'm going to show you my process for a larger watercolor painting. So I usually start off with a rough sketch. I then take that rough sketch into Procreate, as you can see here, and honestly I usually end up redrawing the sketch quite a few times until I have something that I'm happy with. Then I usually test out a couple different color schemes before I decide what I'm going to go with before I actually start the painting process. So now to the actual painting part of the painting process. I first start with a wash of color, usually a light yellow or light peach. And then I slowly build my colors from there. I'll admit, while painting this, I was actually quite rusty. I haven't really done watercolor as much lately. I've been doing a lot more digital. So this was actually my second attempt at this painting. I tried painting it once before and it just didn't really work out. And I thought either I will push myself and make something I really hate, or I'll go back to the drawing board and I'll start over. And that is where I am here. This second attempt ended up turning out a lot better. I liked the color choices a lot more, I leaned a lot more warm, and I also tried a couple of new techniques. I also want to take a moment to apologize a little bit for the changes in lighting throughout the video and just the overall quality. I think it's okay, but let me tell you, I had so many technical difficulties throughout this whole process, both with the painting and with learning how to use my camera. I've seen other people have similar complaints, but I use a Canon EOS M50, and unless it is like direct sunlight, there is grain in the video. Just no matter what, grain. I have lights that I use to help brighten up the image. I was painting by a window during the few hours of direct sunlight I get, but I'm still learning and I hope that you will forgive me for that. Back to the painting. So I really wanted to play around with texture here for the foliage and for the trees. And because of this, I really did try some new things. I played around with the amount of water that I was using and the opaqueness. I wanted the background to have some more dimension. Now, did I actually execute this? You will see. I do think that I learned some things, but I definitely think I have a lot to work to do with background and composition, but creating this piece for me was a way to really explore and learn some of those things. Also, in talking about some technical difficulties, I also lost a tiny bit of footage, so every once in a while you might see some weird cuts, but just know that I tried my best. You will also see that later on in the painting, it suddenly has line work. I did film this, but my head was in the frame the entire time. There is something about line work that is just so hard to do on camera. I just need to be right up against the paper to be able to see and get the steadiness in my lines, but later on when I do add the line work, I actually think it really brought the piece together. So with me talking about some of the mistakes I made, and a lot of that does have to do with the filming, but just in general, I wanted to talk a little bit about my relationship with perfectionism in art. For me, this struggle hits pretty much everywhere in my life. I want things to be good, I want things to be perfect, and honestly, it often stifles my creativity and prevents me from completing things. This video included. I felt the need for video quality to be perfect, for the painting to be perfect, for the process to be perfect. And that's a lot of pressure to put on oneself, especially in my case where this is a hobby, something I'm doing for fun, something that I'm trying to learn from. And let me tell you, it's hard to learn, and while you do learn, it's very hard to learn when you put heavy amounts of pressure on yourself to be perfect. I have found this especially true for art. I've actually found that some of my best creations, best paintings, and best learning experiences have been when I've taken the pressure off. When I'm not worrying about if my anatomy is perfect, if my colors are well selected, but when I just sit down and draw for fun. It's actually something that I really recommend. You will still learn, you'll still progress. In fact, you might do so faster because you're not afraid of messing up. I've also found that my struggles with perfection have also made me really frustrated, and it takes a lot of the joy away from the process of creating. I felt that a little through this painting. And while I really like how it turned out in the end, all I could think about was, this isn't perfect, this isn't how I wanted it to be, and I felt really frustrated at first. But when I took a step back and thought about how this is just one piece in my learning journey and my art journey, I started to feel a lot better. So I've decided that from now on, my focus isn't going to be on making perfect or even good work, but in having fun with the process, finding joy. I don't make money from my art right now, and so for me, just being able to create and escape and do something fun is what I want to focus on. And I also want to focus on trying new things. I've tried a lot of new things this year. Related to my art, I opened up a small shop. When I said I haven't made any money on my art, I mostly mean it because it's a pretty small process. But for me, opening the shop wasn't to make a ton of money and be able to live off of my art at this point. For me, it wasn't even about the success. It was about, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to open the shop. I'm not going to wait for a certain metric to be able to do it. I'm just going to do it. And that's something that I want to bring into other areas of my life. So in the future, I just want to focus on, rather than thinking about how good or perfect something is, focus on trying new things and thinking about, I've done something new, and basing my success off of trying new things and exploring, rather than how good is this thing that I've done. And hopefully that will help me feel a lot more joy in creating. In fact, I think that's why I found a lot of joy creating as a kid, because I wasn't thinking about how good something was. I was having fun and exploring new things and creating what I wanted to see in the world. And you know what? I recommend you try that too. really think we as creatives can really put a lot of pressure on ourselves, but we're doing what we do because we love it. And I think that we all want to reconnect to how we felt when we first started a creative pursuit. And I really do think that not striving for perfection is the way to do that. Anyways, enough of my ramblings about perfection. Let's get back into talking about the painting process. So at this point, I'm starting to add a lot more of the details in, and I've also added in a little bit of the line work. I'm just slowly building the details and working up my colors to the saturation I want them to be at. Here you'll see a little about what I mean for my head kind of getting into frame. I was really trying to add some depth into that dark green bush, kind of around our character. I wanted her to really stand out, and I thought that adding some darker foliage around her would help her stand out in comparison. I've been trying to focus more on contrast in my artwork, and I definitely have a lot of room to grow there, but this is just one of the ways that I was trying to implement a little more contrast between dark and light colors. Also, something silly that I forgot to mention earlier is that my cat was also a very big part of this process. You might actually see his head pop in a couple times. I'm not sure if he actually ended up making it onto frame, but I've had a little bit of an issue with him helping me out a little too much recently. He, for some reason, loves it when I paint. He likes watching the paintbrush, he likes watching it in the water, but he also enjoys sniffing the paint, and he's gotten to the point where he's started to try to lick my paint palette. Now, obviously, paint is highly toxic to people and cats and should not be eaten, and I've never actually let him lick it, but it definitely takes me out of the experience when I'm trying to kick my cat off and keep him out of my paint so I can keep him safe and healthy. So chime down in the comments if you have had similar experiences with a pet kind of getting into your paint or your creative hobbies, and what you do in those situations. So at this point, we are kind of getting into the final details of the piece. I decided to add a lot of flowers, and honestly, this is kind of where I messed up. I did not plan out the flowers or the colors, I just decided to throw them in there, and I decided to use some white gouache, which then turned into other colors of gouache, and unfortunately, I lost some of the footage of putting those flowers in, but after using some Posca pens and trying to clean some things up with a little bit of gouache, this is our final piece. I really like how it turned out, and I hope that I can continue growing from here. Thank you all for joining me today, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.